Okay, today's Wednesday. It is 7:16 p.m. It is May 13th. Um, just when things are looking looking good, something happens. It, it reminds me of a cartoon movie that I saw. It's called Up. And so this couple, this man and a woman in the cartoon, the movie called Up, uh, would save money in a jar, and then every once in a while would crack open the jar to spend it. Okay, they were trying to save it so that they could go on a vacation together, right? And so as life progresses, as life progresses, they start to accumulate, but something happens to distract from their normal life, from keep saving, and so they have to crack open that jar, so they spend it. So eventually, his wife passes away before they could save enough to take on a vacation. And so what he decides to do is to tie up the balloons and take his house on a vacation, right? So it seems like in trading, something happens. My trading buddy talked about this. He says every once every 2 weeks something happens. Okay, things would be going great, and something would happen and cause uh, something to be derailed. Okay, and certainly that's been true, and I've experienced that as well. Okay, for the past about a week and a half, I was doing really good. I thought I knew what I was doing, but what I didn't know that I was being slowly programmed by the market. Okay, I was being programmed. I was removing the layers of discipline that I built, which started on that path to consistency, and I started to unravel. And then I was employing a strategy that was no longer effective, but it was only effective because the market was agreeable at that moment. And then one mishap occurs and created a cascade of events to occur to erase the gains that I had. Okay, so and then I proceeded to lose like 4.5%. And then I said to myself, after that, I've seen it before hundreds of times. As soon as a big loss occurs, a bigger loss occurs following, just like the market. There's a thing called three marching soldiers, which essentially is three big candles. So when something turns, it causes a large loss to occur, and that large loss causes a cascade of events to occur that that will follow for the next few days. Okay, that's how it works. And even in situations where within a 1 minute candle, okay, within a period of a 1 minute window, okay, 1 minute uh, candle within a window, when there is a flush, it is made up of several candles, okay, that are that precedes itself because it carries that momentum, a cascade of events that occurs, right? So then I was taking a walk today and realized something about trading, okay? And um, and and what happens is it is very similar to a manual transmission, okay? Trading is just like a manual transmission, okay? Automatic transmission takes care of it automatically. Okay, it takes care of it it allows the gears to be engaged all the way up from first gear to the highway speed gears. Okay, it does that automatically because it is speed adjusted. The transmission takes care of that. When I first got my driver's license, I had to go to the DMV and then perform a driving test. Okay, but they only had a manual transmission car. They only had a manual transmission car there, and I was trained on an automatic transmission. Everybody else had their car, but I had to drive that manual transmission. The the person who was taking the test, I told him, hey, knows what's going on. The person who's conducting the test knows that somebody who drives a automatic transmission cannot drive a manual transmission. And he said to me, I can't remember whether it's a man or a woman, but the person said to me, do what you can. So what I proceeded to do was, I mean, obviously I had to do something. So I proceeded to get in the car and I started to drive, but I was like mashing gears, right? Because I was out of step between the clutch and, so in manual transmission, there are three pedals, right? There's a clutch, there's a gas, and a brake, okay? And there's a gearbox, okay? So I have to coordinate all that. But automatic transmission only has two pedals, gas and a brake, okay? And so I had to get familiar with instantly at that moment to be aware of the clutch and the extra pedal, which is the clutch. So everybody else was doing well, but I was like mashing gears. I was trying to push, I was trying to switch gears while the clutch was not pressed, and I was like, you can hear the grinding, right? So the person allowed me to pass, okay? So that's how I got my driver's license. Now trading is precisely the same thing. I've noticed this, and I wasn't able to understand the significance of it until today. And what all these things are, initially, what happens is there was a pressure to make that money. Because there's an internal drive that says I have to make this money. If I don't make this money, it will not satisfy the effort that I'm putting into. Okay, it will not satisfy the time and the money that I'm spending in order to make money. And so initially, despite the fact that I do not have the construct of a manual transmission in my trading thoughts, and because I'm used to this automatic thinking, is that I start to trade without having the required infrastructure in order to trade. Okay? And so for me, on a personal level, years would go by thinking that when the market is agreeable to me, that somehow I have finally succeeded. And then a rude awakening occurs, like every once or every week or every 2 weeks. The market shifts, and what I knew used to work because the market was agreeable to me. And then once that trend changes, then I start to experience heavy loss, and I start to chase, and that all these chaotic things occur, like grinding the gear, okay? Because it doesn't want to get in there. I'm trying to force it. Just like trying to force it when I say to myself, when I look back at the end of the day and I make a certain percentage, I made that certain percentage because I went at it without a goal that says, okay, I want to make this much. But when I say to myself that I want to make this much at the beginning of the trading session, what inevitably happens is that causes me to force myself. And then I look at each of the candles that are being painted as something that I need to take advantage of. And when that opportunity is not there, I start to see it. And when I start to see it, I'm generally incorrect, because behind it, I have this forceful nature that wants me to make that work. I'm trying to force it. I'm trying to force a square peg into a round hole. That's what I'm doing. And inevitably what happens is one thing leads to another, and then I end up losing, and heavily. And then because this is a psychological thing, which is a component that it's mixed in with the subconscious, I don't know how to control it. But afterwards, I know what happened. Okay, I know what happened, But as long as it's sitting in my mind, and doing its thing, it's not a physical manifestation until I see the results. Okay? And so what I noticed after about 5.5 years of trying to make this thing work is that what I've noticed is that trading is very similar to a manual transmission. That's why the reason is this, okay? I have to have a sequence of events that I need to go through. If those sequence of events are not done, then I'm guessing and I'm forcing it. Because the sequence of events shows me what the true nature of the market is. Unless I go through that sequence. Okay, so I haven't driven a manual transmission in quite a while, but here's how it works, okay? Okay, so I depress the brakes, okay? I put the car, so what I do is I put the car key inside the car, okay? Ignition, okay? I put the brakes on. I put it in neutral. The brakes will keep the vehicle stopped. And I put the clutch in neutral, which means that the gear is not engaged, okay? So that means that I can start the engine and it will run by itself without any obstructions whatsoever, okay? That is the starting position, okay? Then with my other feet, I depress the clutch, okay? While the brake is still applied, I press it, okay? Because I started the engine, the car is running. Then when the engine is started and I still have my left foot on the brake, then I press the clutch. That means that the clutch is prepared to receive the gear, okay? And so then I put it into first gear, okay? I put it into first gear and it goes in without any obstruction whatsoever because the clutch is a gateway to putting in the gear, okay? Putting into gear. So when I press the clutch, it means that I can push it into the first gear, okay? Then what I do is I take my feet off the brakes and I start to give gas, okay? So I take my left feet off of the brakes and I start to give it gas. So now I'm running the engine in first gear, okay? Then what I do is I press the clutch as the speed climbs. Then what I do is after I press the clutch, I pull the gear out, okay? Then I put into second gear, okay? Then I release the clutch. Now the engine now is powering the second gear, okay? Then I give it gas and I climb and then I repeat that, okay? When I'm going into the stop, what I do is I press the clutch and I put on the brakes, okay? And I can either shift into the lower gear and then let go of the clutch so that I can slow down that way to help the brakes, okay? But if I wanted to stop, what I do is I disengage with the clutch, okay? Then what I do is I put the brakes on, and the brake will stop the car because the car engine, the power has been disengaged from the drivetrain, okay? That's how it works, okay? If I go out of sequence in any way, there will be a mangling of gears and things will break down, okay? Mangling of gears, that's what happens. So when trading occurs, and I see this is something that I took lightly for the past 5.5 years, and this is the situation I'm in, okay? And I'm desperately trying to make this work. Okay, there's fire and like volcanoes and hurricanes that are at my back. Okay, and I'm trying to make this work. I'm trying to make this work under this extreme pressure. Okay, to survive in poverty. Okay, with physical impairment and losing one eye. I'm trying to make this work. Okay, it's not. I have a steaming locomotive at my back, and I'm trying to make this work calmly as possible. Okay. And I have to, and these are things that I don't know, and I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to grab onto this concept as much as possible. Because of that, I spent every penny that I had. Okay, I spent every penny of that trying to make this work as fast as possible. But in reality, trading is just like that manual transmission. okay? So what that meant is this, okay? When I look at a chart, and this is very, very similar to what this psychiatrist, a trading psychiatrist talked about, okay? Brett Steenbacher of S&P Capital, he says this. As a psychiatrist, his job is to sit there to listen first. His job is to listen first, okay? His job is to listen first, which means what he's doing, because he's also a trader. So what he does is he looks at the market as each candle is printed, whether it's a 1 minute candle, 5 minute candle, or 15-minute candle, 30-minute candle, whatever the candle is, he comprises within a window to determine what is happening. Then he can extrapolate what's going to happen. But if I don't take the time to engage the clutch, okay, then there will be a mashing of gears. If I don't depress the clutch, if I pull something out, it's going to be an abrupt, chaotic, mechanical disarray. It's going to break everything apart, and that's why when there's emotion is involved, okay? Sometimes I'm hungry. Sometimes I have an argument. Sometimes there are pressures that are pressuring me, okay? And certain things occur, okay? Let's say I go to work, and the reason why I wear earplugs is I want to keep my peace stable as long as possible. But if somebody looks at it and says, okay, but I can't hear, so I'll scream. But that totally defeats the purpose of wearing the earplugs, right? They don't know that. So the idea in trading is, now that guy is giving advice. That's like, why would a psychiatrist give that advice, right? But he's perfectly and 100% correct, okay? He's 100% correct, but you have to first observe to see what it's doing so that if you have the skills to extrapolate to what's going to happen, then you'll benefit. But if you're able to see it, but you're not able to recognize it, you cannot form into what currently exists so that you could carry it over to something that you foresee it to be happening, okay? So that you can place your trades in anticipation of what's going to happen, okay? If the price is going up, you want to get it as low as possible. Okay, if the price is going down, you want it as high as possible. But you got to set it there in anticipation of what's going to happen, okay? The only way to understand that, to get to that point, is first being able to analyze what it is. I have to analyze it for what it is. But if I'm trying to force it, that emotion will blind me because it forces me to see something that is not there. And generally speaking, as a novice trader, that's what happens. And novice traders always lose. That is the definition of a novice trader. A novice trader is, by definition, is always losing. That is the definition, right? But somebody who's experienced, who knows how to trade, will make money, which means the person is generally able to look at the charts, determine what the chart is to a high level of degree. Then when a trade is made, then the person who is profitable will be able to extrapolate and see what happens at a certain period of time, okay? That is also a definition of a profitable trader. And so what I have been doing, sometimes what I would do is I'm like coffeeed up. I got a lot of coffee, okay? These days I drink a lot of coffee. I want to make sure that I am alert when I'm doing this, okay? So that's one requirement. I have to be alert, mind and body. And coffee allows that to occur. What the coffee doesn't allow is the setup. The setup is the background work. I have to hone and articulate so that I can apply it in trading. So what has been missing since last week was my inability to look at the market, identify what's happening, and then specifically categorize what I'm seeing so that I can determine what will happen. Okay, that has been plaguing me for quite a while. The undue pressure of trying to make that work, okay, is precisely. And I was also thinking about this. Why is a software written such that it is consistent? Okay, if the software is running incorrectly, when you run it, it's going to behave exactly the same way. Okay, whether it's right or wrong, it's going to just keep repeating it the same way over and over again. Okay, that's what a software is, and it is consistent. It's consistent from beginning to the end. It's consistent. Okay, but the variability of being a human being, there are things that are out there. For instance, what I've noticed is I did something yesterday that was like I was like I just cannot. It is so outlandish. It is something that is. I had no idea. Just today, I'm still trying to figure out how that could have happened. Okay, so essentially, I was at 5.2% because I lost about 0.5%. Okay, so I can see that right. Then I start watching, and then I was doing something else on this screen. There's two screens. I have two screens. This notebook computer screen I was looking at. Then when I was looking at it, then something caught my eye up from my left side, because I generally have Al Brooks that is playing here. I'm studying that. Generally caught my eye, and then I looked at it, and then it was spiking up. Okay, but because my mind was essentially blank, it was blank. It was not geared up to trade. And so when I saw that green candle, I immediately maxed out. Okay, it's automatic. Okay, my mind and body, the subconscious has been programmed to do it. Okay, but the logical side was not being a governor to that situation. And so I sized in. Of course, generally what happens is when there's a big candle, there's a pullback. Okay, the reasonable side knew that. But the subconscious side only saw the candle and only extrapolated that to mean that it's going to continue. Okay, but what happens when I enter into the trade? What it will do is it'll paint the candle, and the prop firm will only execute the trade at the top. Okay, where it's holding. Okay, generally it holds, and then after it executes it, it starts to go down. So when I look at it, it is top ticked with the fee added to it. That's the first step. So it goes down 1.5%. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, what did I just do? Okay, what did I just do? Then this screen captures my view, and I'm still looking at it. Totally void of the manual transmission part of what I need to do. It's not automatic, but my mind is all automatic. It's thinking automatically, but it is manual transmission. And so then I watch it. I watch about 10 minutes of the candle fluctuate. Then the candle starts to pick up again. Then I enter, despite the fact that I said, hey, look, how did that happen? I entered into it. Of course, it hits the resistance. It is the resistance area. The market is telling me that that's resistance. That is resistance. It told me the first time. Now it's telling me the second time. But the logical side, the brain could not see it. Somehow something happened. Something in my mind was like severed from the logical side, and the reasonable side was severed. And then I entered into it. Of course, it dipped again. I lost another 1.5%. I'm thinking to myself, okay, wow, I am a two-time loser. It happened to me twice. How did that happen? How could something like that happen, right? Then I watched it again for another 15 minutes, and then it started to climb back up again, and then I find myself doing it again. So in a matter of 30 minutes, I was able to lose 4.7%, okay? After the fact, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I've been doing this for 5.5 years. I'm doing the same thing that I did 5.5 years ago. Totally void of what I need to do. What sequence of events need to occur? It needs to occur. In trading, these sequence of events need to occur in order for me to execute the trade properly. If these things do not occur, if there's no observation, if the psychiatrist sit there, looks at a person and says, oh, I'm going to diagnose you, it's going to be, even if the person is preeminent worldwide known psychiatrist, the person has the probability of being incorrect because the psychiatrist did not watch and listen to the person who's there to determine what the state of person is. When the person, see, generally speaking, psychologically speaking, okay, when a person has a psychological profile, that psychological profile has a lifespan. It has momentum, okay, and it's very difficult to change behavior. It's very, very difficult to change behavior, okay? It is incredibly difficult to change behavior. But as a trader, that's why when a prop firm hires people, they want to hire like new college graduates because they haven't established bad habits. They haven't established bad habits, okay? When that bad habit is established, it's hard to break, okay? It's hard to break. It's really, really hard to break. I know it. It's incredibly difficult to break, okay? So that habit continues. And so in order for the psychiatrist to observe that behavior, and that's probably why the person came over to fix whatever the issue is. And so the only way to fix it is to observe, because each person, generally there's a common sense solution to everybody, but uniquely it's different because the experience is different for each person, right? So this essentially is not an automatic transmission, it's a manual transmission, okay? And that manual transmission, okay, that's why it's easy to convict someone. It happens overnight, and you just say, hey, you're guilty, you're done. And forever, it's written in paper, and you're guilty forever. But in order to convince somebody that you're innocent, you have to live a lifestyle for years and years and years and years and years. Once those years and years and years have been proven with a specific pattern of behavior, then the thinking changes. Okay? The conviction is instant. But in order to convince somebody, it takes years and years and years and years because it brings out in recorded. Okay? It's recorded. Whatever happened is being recorded, documented to see what the data is showing. Okay? So in trading, I've been doing this for 5.5 years, and I just didn't know that. The reason I did not know that is because the lure, the sparkle of the money was blinding me, and had been blinding me for the past 5.5 years. It blinded me, and I couldn't see it, and it was so obvious. Okay, and so many people are still plagued because their money is very, very emotional. It is incredibly emotional. It is so powerful and emotional that it instantly turns a human being into a subconscious human being when that happens. Okay, so the mastery of it is having the ability to switch into the manual transmission, to understand that even though it doesn't look like I need it, when things are going, I tend to say, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't have to do this because I'm making money anyway, right? And it keeps happening, okay? That is why I keep blowing challenges, okay? So within the past 3 days, I blew 3 challenges. One that I was working for about 2 weeks, which I was all the way up to 7%. And then once I got to 7%, I'm thinking, okay, I did it, okay? I got to 7%. I did it. But I needed 1 more percent. But my mind was already cashing in. I said to myself, oh my God, okay? Oh my God, look. My God, I achieved it. I'm going to start making money, okay? I'm going to start making money. And the glitter and the allure just totally, it just started with a little bit of spark and just totally erased my brain of the discipline and things like that and started to erode, okay? It started to erode, and then once that erosion occurred, it totally brainwashed me. If somebody who hasn't gone through this will say, boy, that guy's crazy. That guy has no idea what he's talking about. What the heck is he talking about? Okay? They'll say that because I was in the same shoes. Okay, I was in the same shoes, but I'm here at 5.5 years, and I'm looking at that. I'm saying to myself, it's real. Whatever. So this guy who's made $100 million. This guy, I remember this guy. Mike Bellafiore uh, is a founder of S&P Capital, and he went to this college, university, and he met this fellow because he was invited by this college student. Okay, this college student invited him to a university to give a speak, and then after this college student graduated, he went to work for Trillium, a prop firm, and he made 14 million bucks in 1 year, right? Then he joined S&P Capital to join this Mike Bellafiore again, and then now he's at $100 million, and he says this. He had this YouTube video, and he's talking about this. And before I would laugh at it because I didn't realize the significance of what he was talking about. He says this. If he had an argument with somebody, he doesn't trade. Right? So he says this. He says this is very, very important. This is very, very important. People take this lightly because it really is ineffectual. It's ineffective in normal day life. In normal day life, an argument occurs every time, and because whoever has an argument isn't aware of the impact of that argument, will just say it's nothing. It's irrelevant. But as a trader, stress and emotion, these things plague, and it can mean an obliteration of an account. If somebody has $10 million in their trading account and that person has an argument, that $10 million can be gone in a matter of 30 minutes or less. That's how significant it is. But I didn't know this 5.5 years ago. And then finally it occurred to me when that guy says, if he had an argument of any kind, he doesn't trade, he checks. Okay, that's what he said. That's how powerful emotion is. And that is why, even though I was at 7%, I'm looking at this last night. This is on borrowed money. Okay? This is borrowed money. The money was $66 to go through this challenge, and I blew it. I'm looking at it. I'm describing it in a manner where it is essentially the subconscious doing its thing, because I knew it's like 100% loss, and then I repeat it again, 100% loss, and I repeat it again. It makes absolutely no logical sense whatsoever, right to the logical side. But on a global scale, now that I see it, it makes perfect logical sense. Because I was under the influence of emotion. Something similar to what a tilt is. And when that happens, I don't see anything. Okay? So when a raging bull sees a red flag, okay, red thing, cape and things like that, that raging bull, that is why I think they're called the matadors, okay? So what they do, they have this little flag, okay? And so what they do is they wave it around. They catch the attention of the bull. And that bull is only focused on that cape, okay? It has been programmed throughout it, okay? And then later on, what it will do, the matador will have a sword and wrap around it, okay? But the bull is so engaged. It's so engaged. The emotion is so engaged that throughout that half an hour of the matador interacting with the bull, it has been programmed to behave in a certain way. And that's why, as the matador proceeds with the bullfight, what will happen is the matador will get closer and closer to the horns, because he has the bull in full control. And the bull is totally fixated on that cape. And then when the time is right, you will plunge it into the bull and it's over, okay? That's trading. That's the difference between manual transmission and automatic transmission. I know it. So it is imperative. It is imperative to categorize the sequence of events that occur and has to be adhered to. Item by item by item. That is how I reduce risk, okay? The trading buddy told me this. He's not trading right now because he has to focus on his day job, okay? Because so some company bought his company. Now he has to focus on the day job, okay? And so now he's not trading, but he knows the importance of stop losses. Stop losses are so important because stop loss allows me to adjust my risk size. I can't put a stop loss on there if the size is too big because there's no place to put it. Trading is manual transmission.